Hello, 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 everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson live, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central, with our weekday evening news show. Are you ready? We've got a lot to talk about. So let's just jump right into this. I'm hoping that we can get some additional people watching and participating. Today, if you missed today's noon Eastern show, it started off a little bit slow, but boy, did it pick up towards the end. We had some good conversations taking place there and really enjoyed the conversation. Now, we had people on there who did not agree with us, don't believe in us, all kinds of stuff. That's fine. That is perfectly fine, because, we want all those different perspectives. And who are we to shut out another voice, right? I mean, that's what we're clamoring about, is making sure our voice is heard. Who are we to shut them down on our own platforms, right? So I had to switch glasses because the reflection, these glasses have better computer reflectivity or something, or whatever it is, lack of reflectivity. But anyway, so yeah, there's been a lot going on. Today's noontime show, I mean, if you missed that thing, it was pretty darn good. Had some good conversations. There are people on there that I completely disagree with. But, parts of what they said, some things, you can agree with, but other things you don't. So nothing is clear, black and white. You just don't go in and go, hey, that person believes this, but that means everything they believe is wrong. No, that's not true. That's not true. People aren't black and white. They're very gray and all kinds of shades in between. So you never know what you're going to get. So anyway, big news for today. Obviously, I'm on the red carpet right now. One of my friends from California earlier today had mentioned that we needed, he was talking about the red carpet out in LA because he lives in LA. And we were talking about a red carpet program that we would do for something if and when we're able to get to California and actually do something major out there for LGBT and particularly trans people in that whole region. So yeah, red carpet was one of the ideas. The phrase that he and I used quite a bit in one of the show programs was called Shalom Amigos. This person is a Jewish person, that person living out in LA. And also there's obviously a lot of Spanish culture there. So it became Shalom Amigos. Okay. So yes, we're the Shalom Amigos. So anyway, yes, the situation in Israel is very trying for him. Very, very trying and traumatic for him. Absolutely is very much concerned about what's going on over there. And he, like myself, we recognize that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and that this terrorist organization, along with other terrorist organizations in the region, or even around the world, really, if you believe that another group of people doesn't have a right to exist because they don't agree with you, well, you're a terrorist organization. Your ideology, that's your ideology, is as terrorism, trying to bring terror and fright and fear into this other group of people that you don't like. And we can see that in all kinds of things. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But the first thing is, there's some news coming out of Israel. I know that they tried to go in and rescue some people. There's a rescue attempt sometime today. I think I saw something about that from one of the other news sources. I don't know how successful that was. I don't know anything about it. But I do know that it had occurred. I also know that the United States is doing everything we can to make sure that Israel has the weapons and the munitions to be able to successfully push back against this terrorist group. Now, let me make this very, very clear right now. This is not about the Palestinian people. This is not about Gaza per se. This is about a terrorist group that assumed control in Palestine in, I think it's 2007. But here's the thing you need to know about these terrorist groups, these anti-Semitic terrorist groups, and that's what this is. I mean, there's all kinds of them. You have the Islamic Jihad, you've got ISIS, you've got Al-Qaeda, you've got Hezbollah, you've got the Islamic Revolutionary Guard in Iran. I mean, and you got the Iranian leaders. And then you have some people in our own country right here in the U.S. who say that Israel doesn't have the rights to exist too, but they're just wacko. They're entitled to that view. They're entitled to protect their right to have stupidity come out of their mouths over it. But that's exactly what's happening here. So this is, but people tend to think we have a really short memory. We have a really short memory when it comes to this kind of stuff. We have a tendency to go, well, it just happened now, and the past 3 or 4 years it didn't happen, and if we did this, it would still not happen. No, bullshit. Call bullshit on it. Call it what it is. The anti-Semitic curse that's in these terrorist groups, this desire to destroy the people of Israel, to destroy all Jewish people, remove them from the face of the earth, that's a generational thing. That goes back thousands of years. And it may come and go with one generation. One generation might skip over and be at peace, but the next one, they're not going to forget. These people, these terrorist groups want Israel gone. And basically all it amounts to is sibling rivalry. One's mad at the other for not doing it the way they thought they should have been doing it. But that's pretty common though, isn't it? Pretty common. I'll get to explain what I mean by that in just a second. We're going to go right down in that little rabbit hole with you on that. I do have people who are saying that we're doing a lot of, activism stuff on this side, and it's less than professional, but I'm going to tell you right now, right straight up, the fight that we're in doesn't care. It only wants us gone. That may be a harsh reality for some people to understand, but that's what's going on right now. These terrorist groups, and Hamas being the one that led the charge on Saturday morning, killing all those people, all those civilians killed by this terrorist group. There's Israelis and Americans and probably other nationalities represented there as well. That's a terrorist group. They wanted to strike fear into the heart and mind of Israel. I don't think they expected to succeed. But terrorism actually works that way. It actually is about terror, just creating a reign of terror. If they can do that, well, they feel happy about it. But they do want to erase Israel. They do want to erase, delete, and excise Israel from the face of the earth because they don't consider them to be the real leaders and carriers of the word of God. That's what this amounts to. So they're out to erase them. They're out to delete them and excise them. You know where those words actually show up again? It's not even funny, but I'm laughing about it. You know where those things show up again, those words? Here we have Hamas wanting to erase, delete, excise, kind of remove Israel and Jewish people from the face of the earth completely. But that same kind of mentality applies to any group wanting to displace another because they disagree with them. Here in the U.S., there are anti-Semites all over the place. Many of them think that Israel doesn't have a right to exist either, but, they're wrong, wrong-headed. They can come on here and talk all they want. I don't care. You can come on here and tell your stuff, which they did today. Some of them did today. Yes, some of them did. They were right here on this show. But I'm not going to deny them space to speak just because I disagree with them. Because in our name, this is Diverse Veterans of America. And I'm willing to entertain all those other ideas and concepts that I may not necessarily agree with. But I will strongly, strongly tell you that you're wrong. I will strongly tell you that ideology you're adhering to is wrong. It's not good. If it causes harm, if that can cause harm to another group of people, or if you try to separate yourself from them because you happen to think that you're better than them, as in Hamas over in attacking Israel, then you're wrong. It's that simple. Israel has a right to protect its borders. Its territorial sovereignty belongs to them to protect. It's their people. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Now, like I said at the top of the hour, I'm not talking about the Palestinian people. I'm talking about the terrorist organization that has been running that area of the country, of the world, since 2007, roughly. But this ideology has been around for thousands of years, wanting to erase Israel, wanting to destroy anything that has to do with Jewish people. That's what this is all about. It's a generational thing. You can stop it now. You may stop it for 10 years. You may stop it for 50 years. But it's a generational thing. If it goes away now for 5, 10, 20, 50 years, it'll come back in the next generation. Somewhere along the line, these people have got to figure out that, hey, what happened way back yonder? Let's stop, let it go, and let people live. So right now, this terrorist organization needs to be stomped out of existence. That's my opinion. Not the Palestinian people. And I urge any Palestinian person who is not associated with these terrorist organizations, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, or Islamic Jihad, or any other terrorist type organization that wants to, if their ideology is to wipe out Israel and to take it, to destroy it, and you adhere to it, well, you're part of the problem. But if you are not associated with those things and you're trying to distance yourself from that, well, then get away, because that whole region there is going to be absolutely up in flames, and rightfully so, because you just don't go in and try to strike fear and terror into the hearts and minds of a people just because you don't like them. And people tell me it's about oppression. I've heard that word used a couple of times today. This is just a response to the long-term oppression. No, it's not. That's a convenient excuse. This hatred for Israel and Israel and Jewish people is generational, thousands of years old. You're not going to do, I mean, you can call it oppression if you want, but that's very myopic. That's a very myopic way to look at it. So the root of the problem has got to be dealt with. But what is that? How do you do it? Lord, I don't know. Some really good, smart people have tried, but their view and their perspective and their way of looking at it and their way of talking about it is temporal. It's connected to the time that they're in. It's not a holistic view of what's going on. It's not a strategic, large-scale, multiple time-scale view of things. If you look at that in a bigger picture, you'll know that this is not a simple thing to fix. You just don't go in there and wave a wand and say, okay, we got these Abrahamic Accords that we're going to stick to and make that work. That will not dispel generational hatred. It's that simple. And right now, since Hamas as a terrorist organization attacked and killed multiple civilians, about 1,000 or so, 900,000 people in Israel, killing people who are not doing nothing but going to a rave, actually having a good time there, Hamas has got to be destroyed. Period. It is a terrorist organization, not a state worthy of protection. It does not have territorial sovereignty. It's a terrorist organization. Wherever they are, they need to be rooted out. But I don't know if it will actually stop the problem or even fix it, because this kind of generational curse gets passed down through generation after generation, repeated in families, repeated in cultures, and constantly told. People are constantly told, you've got to hate Israel for some reason or other. Come on, whatever it might be. And we see the same kind of thinking taking place with the anti-Semites here in this country and around the world. They're wanting to do something to get after the Jewish people, the Hebrews, the Israelis. They're wanting to do something to attack them and hurt them and harm them and remove them. My God, that has been going on for thousands of years now. Why? Lord, who knows? Does it matter? Ultimately, no, it doesn't matter, but still, it matters to them. We got to figure out a way to stomp this thing out. You say education is going to do it, well, go for it. Try it. It won't work. It will not work. But what you have to do is actually change this thing. You have to have a multi-generational plan to fix it, to address this. You can't do it in a 10-year period of time within a particular time period to make that happen and make it stick. No, because you still have people from the old generation teaching the new generation to hate Israel. And we see that right here in this country, too, in the U.S. Right where this red carpet is, this is actually just an image in the background. But anyway, but where do we see other things where people or organizations or groups are wanting to erase, delete, excise, remove from public sphere, the public square, remove people because they don't agree with them from the public square? It comes in different forms, but it's still the same kind of thing. They're trying to rain terror down upon this smaller group that they happen to disagree with. And they use words like erase and delete and excise. And yes, I'm going to point a finger directly at those things, because it's just as horrendous as what Hamas has done to Israel. And yes, I fully agree that we ought to be sending weapons over there and munitions to Israel to help them defend themselves and fight and take over, destroy Hamas for what they did Saturday morning. Now, let me just kind of encompass this even further. For those of you who think that Ukraine doesn't deserve the money to defend their territorial borders against the nation state of Russia, it's hypocritic of you. It's hypocritic. I said that earlier today. It's not medical. It's hypocrisy on your part for you to say, let's make sure Israel gets everything they need, but not Ukraine. Ukraine needs every bit of funding they can to push back against a nation state aggressor who wants to mow over them. I had some person come on earlier today in the earlier show, the noon show, and they were trying to defend Russia as saying that Ukraine used to be part of Russia. Yeah, okay, yeah, when? Okay, maybe 30 years ago, 50, 100, maybe something like that. But at some point, where do you decide that time period is enough, or that time period before that was something different? Or, I mean, that's just a bullshit argument, because it goes up and down over time who controls a certain territory, right? Even in Israel, even in Gaza Strip, that people say that it all belonged to the Palestinians. No, it depends on when you decide to cut off your vision to decide that and be able to state that with any kind of rational thought. You have to go, oh, just in the past 50 years or the past 100 years, that was Palestinian. Maybe the past 1,000 years, that was a Palestinian land. Yeah, but that's pretty myopic of you just to limit things to that level, right? My God, it's just crazy. But anyway, so we've got the same kind of crap happening here with other organizations trying. Oh, let me see. I just want to finish talking about Ukraine. I get so riled up about all this. I can go on and on and on and on and just talk. And geez, and the laugh that you hear is sometimes it's me trying to figure out the right word to say, as one of my friends down in Florida says. But at other times it's like, I don't know what else to do. I don't want to cry, because that's what all this makes me feel like doing. This is a bunch of humans attacking another bunch of humans because they don't happen to think they're human enough, or righteous enough, or religious enough, or conservative enough, or un-American. That's what it amounts to. Hamas has taken weapons and decided to change their view of things, to enforce their view of the world. They're using weapons to try to kill out the people that they don't want around. How'd they get to that place? Let's take a look down the road as to how you get to the place where you're willing to go kill somebody because you don't think they have a right to exist. Let's take that road right down the path, right? Just follow that rabbit right on down that hole. You ready? Ready? How'd they get there? Generations and generations ago, someone told them it's the Hebrews, the Jewish people, that have been the cause of all of our errors, all of our mistakes, all of our bad experiences in life come about because of the Jewish people. And that's what they have been taught, generation after generation after generation. At some point along the way, it gets to the place where we've got to remove them. That's the only way we can actually live successfully now. The only way we can have the good life is if that group is gone. That's where Hamas is at. That's where the Islamic Jihad is at. ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah. They have been convinced for generations that Israel is the problem, that Jewish people is the problem, and that their lives would improve dramatically if they got rid of them. Bullshit. The problems are yours. You need to look inward. Now, I'm saying all that because we can see the same types of things happening with other types of ideologies, and all those things are ideologies that people are going after. You know, Islam is a religious ideology. They might not call it that, cultural ideology or whatever. So is Christianity. So is Hinduism, Buddhism. So is conservatism, republicanism, liberalism. Those things are all ideologies. and they come and go with the wind. But what they do is they have an impact on the mind of the people who actually follow them. If you don't think violence can be the result of that kind of thinking, if you started out on a small scale right now somewhere in this world, and for the next 10 years or 20 years, you start claiming that these people are the reason for the problems that you're having, these people are the reason for you not having everything that you think you need in your life, guess where you end up? You end up harming the people that you are talking about. Your words lead to someone carrying it out. Hamas is at that place. They've been told over and over and over and over again for generations that Jewish people are the cause of all their problems, and if they get rid of them, that their problems will go away and that they'll be able to live the good life. Do you see the corollary now between some other kind of ideologies that are sweeping around the planet? Right here in the USA, for instance. Do you see it? There is a connection. It's the kind of mentality and thinking that leads to the destruction that occurred Saturday morning in Israel, the violent death of so many, the deaths of so many people, civilians. And now we're going to see the same kind of thing occur in Gaza because Hamas has taken over there and been ruling it for a while. It's not the Palestinian people that's the problem. It's the terrorist group that's a problem. Israel has every right to wipe them off the face of the earth. And am I saying anything backwards from that? No, they're a terrorist group who wants another one exterminated, and they've gone to great lengths to make it happen. It's something that is on their mind, whether they say it today or say it in 10 years or didn't say it for 50. It's there. It gets passed down. It's a hatred for another because they're different. It's a hatred for another because they are perceived and scapegoated into being perceived as the problem, the hindrance to your salvation. If you don't think that is a correct assessment, well, I mean, I don't know where the hell your head is at, but that's where it's at, okay? That's exactly what's going on. If you don't think this is worth fighting for, if you don't think this is worth standing up and proclaiming and actually taking it to them in the face and showing them what has to happen for one group of people to accept another, to end the kind of hatred that gets embedded into a people, you got to start at the root. You've got to go to the very root, the source of those things, and try to stop it and point it out. Tell them they're wrong. Tell them that what they're doing will cause harm, if not already caused harm, to another human being. But, you've got it easy, though. If you scapegoat a group long enough, you dehumanize them. If you keep telling people that other group over there, that group right there, that one right there that doesn't look like us and doesn't act like us and doesn't believe like us, if you keep telling them that, they aren't protected under the Constitution, they don't have First Amendment rights, if you keep saying that they're unreal, whereas your people are real people, if you say that they're unnatural, you are laying the foundations for harm to that smaller group, to that other group that you don't like. If you don't believe it, hey, just go to the Middle East and look around. Open your eyes up and see exactly what's going on. Now, what organization, what group here in the United States would want to eradicate another one? You tell me. Yeah, come on, speak up. Tell me. Which groups right here in the United States of America have declared they want to erase, eliminate, delete, excise all those unreal and unnatural people, their fellow Americans, their siblings? Same kind of sibling thing, the Abrahamic siblings that are fighting each other right now because they think one doesn't have the right to exist. Generational, thousands of years old. Here's what you're looking at, the end result of all of this kind of bitterness and language that you're starting out with today. But to be clear, you didn't start today. You started about 30 years ago. So you've built this up, actually probably about 50 years ago. You've built this thing up and blamed it on certain people. You're saying that we aren't the nation we should be because, or whatever, this people are doing that. Or we're getting all these ravages of hurricanes and tornadoes and storms and all this kind of stuff occurring because, it's the LGBT people, it's the gays. If that's not Hamas-like, if that's not the same tactic used there over generations to persuade them to go out and kill the Jews simply because they have been told they shouldn't like them and that they're the root cause of all of their issues, well, then you're doing the same thing. You're laying that foundation. If you don't see the connection to that, you aren't as much of a history person as you think you are. You don't know enough about history and the patterns and trends over time to be able to say that with any kind of understanding, because no, you don't. You don't get it. That's where we are right now. Does that piss me off? Yeah, it does. It also pisses me off that I can't get people to see this. That I can't get people to see that if we do not deal with it now, if we just turn the other cheek and let them just keep slapping us, if we keep doing that, you know what the outcome of that will be? Hamas. There you go. There's going to be people who don't like what I have to say because here I am as a transgender woman, a veteran in the United States of America. You think I ought to be saying it one way and doing all these kind of things and being quiet and just letting it kind of roll over because this is not a big deal and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you that, yes, it is. These days are not yesterday. These days are not yesterday. What we could do yesterday and just kind of get away with it, well, for 30, 40 years, they've been aiming to this place where they can actually say in writing exactly what they want to happen to us. You know what that is? Go to project2025.org, read the document, read the forward to it. You'll find out in there exactly what they want to do. And you'll find out in there that they're trying to raise up an army of conservatives to sweep into the whole of the federal government if a conservative wins the presidency. And on January the 20th, 2025, this person stands up there and goes, "So help me God." Well, they have been building this army of people and training and vetting them and going through classes and making sure they're conservative enough and vetted enough to be able to fit in and take over the whole of the executive branch of the government when that person says, "So help me God." And very clearly stated precisely with these words: erase, delete, excise from the whole of the federal government, words like, sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, intersectionality, abortion. They want to remove all those words from the whole of the federal government, and they would love to have it across the states, but, they say they're states' rights people, but they're going to try to impose federal rules upon people too. They aren't states' rights people. They're just power-seeking people. That's all that amounts to, okay? Power-seeking. That's what they want, power. They want to be able to impose upon this nation exactly what Matt Walsh calls himself on his Twitter profile. You can go check out Matt Walsh on his Twitter profile. You can see exactly how he describes himself. He's self-aware enough to be able to tell you the truth of who he or what he believes, his ideology. Not Matt. Matt as a person is a person separate from those ideologies, but, the ideologies are things he's kind of thought through and accepts as part of who he is. But that's, his ideology is, and I'll just tell you, you go look at Matt Walsh's page and guess what's there. Many of you are going to be incredulous when I tell you this. You have this high thing, expectation for who these people are or what their ideologies are. But Matt is self-aware enough, and I applaud him for this. He's self-aware enough to be able to tell you exactly who he is. You know what it is? Have you been there yet? I'm thinking some of you have already jumped over there and checked out Matt's page, right? Matt's Twitter feed. He calls himself a theocratic fascist. Let that sink in for just a minute. That's exactly what all the others are too, but they don't have the kahunas that Matt has to be able to go up there and say, "Yeah, this is who I am." But they are. They are. That's exactly what they're trying to do, impose their theocratic fascism on the rest of us. And I've got people in this community who will look at me and say, but that's kind of harsh, or that's not professional. How important is your life? What are we fighting for? What are we struggling for? We're struggling to live and let live, period. All the other stuff, the superfluous stuff that takes place around the periphery of all of this thing, associating trans people with porn or child pornography or all this kind of stuff, and promoting all the promiscuity and all this kind of crap, that is not what it's about. And we aren't those things. We aren't an ideology. Heritage and Project 2025 wants you to think that we are, because they say that we are protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. In other words, we're not protected by the Constitution. In other words, they don't think we have personhood enough to count as qualify for protections by the U.S. Constitution. But you know what does have protections, though, under this same regime of thinking? Corporations. They have personhood. More so than what Roberts seems to think that transgender people have. In that first paragraph, the first several paragraphs within the 4 that he wrote to Project 2025's document, that's what he claims. You can go check it out yourself. If you think he's right, come and talk. Tell me. Let's talk about it. Come on over here and talk. Let's have a conversation about that. I will not shut you out, because I do not and will not shut down another person because they simply disagree with me or I disagree with them. But I will tell you up front that I disagree with you, even after you talk with me a little bit and I listen to what you have to say and let you communicate that, and maybe even get some people agreeing with you. I will still tell you that if you think those things, then you're wrong, and you need to reassess your thinking on it. Okay? So what have I done here? What have I talked about? Talked about Hamas being a terrorist organization, threatening the territorial sovereignty of a nation state, Israel, going in and killing civilians en masse, women, children, older people, everybody, anyone, as long as they're Jewish or associated with the Jewish people, they're going to eradicate them. That's been their thinking for generations. And the hubris that we have to think that we can walk in there and go, hey, here's this plan. I think we'll take this plan and make this work and help it out and keep peace. But it's going to keep peace for a little while, maybe. It may kind of slide through, but the moment something happens, they'll throw that Abrahamic Accord out the darn window. Because all along, the institutional and the generational hatred towards Jewish people is there still. But the hypocrisy on the Americans' part is that we have a bunch of people wanting to give Israel all kinds of weapons and all kinds of munitions to help them fight off Hamas and destroy Hamas, and rightfully so. But out of the other side of their mouth, they go, but we don't want to give Ukraine any of that money to help them secure their border from an aggressor state. There's hypocrisy in that. It's a rational failing of some kind. Whatever that might be, it's a failing of reason. It's a failure of logic. It's a failure of rationality. It's hypocrisy. Make sure that Ukraine can defend its borders, and make sure Israel can protect itself from that terrorist group or any of them. Russia has no rights to Ukraine. Russia has no rights to Crimea, just as Russia has no rights to Belarus, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Poland, eastern part of Germany, Yugoslavia. Russia has no claim to them. They're independent, sovereign nations. And once they're attacked, once their borders are threatened, they have every right to defend that, and we have every right to help them protect it. And we should. It's just that simple, folks. But the kind of crap that leads Hamas to attack Israel, that kind of thinking, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the seeds of that kind of hatred develop over the past 30, 40, 50 years or whatever. in the hatred towards LGBTQ plus people or minorities, really. LGBTQ plus people or trans people just happen to be the current scapegoat that you can actually target easily because there aren't enough of us around to do much to fight off this, unless we have a lot of good friends, unless we have people giving us the tools and the support we need to help fend off these assaults against us, against our personal integrity, personal sovereignty. That's what's being threatened here. The result will be the same. If over time this is allowed to continue and we don't put a stop to it now, then you're going to find that there are people who will do everything in their power to try to destroy those who aren't like them. Oh, wait, we're already there. Yep. Especially our trans people of color who experience the brunt of most of this crap, the hatred and the bias and the bigotry. Yeah. So, yeah, I've kind of ranted and raved about all of this stuff. Someone has a comment over there, but I haven't even taken the time to look at it yet. I don't know who's watching. Maybe I should go over and take a look, huh? Let's see. Oh, no, I'm not posting a panel, but people are welcome to come on and talk. Stella, you can come on and talk anytime you want. All you have to do is just let me know, and I'll make sure you get the link to come on. As a matter of fact, I can put the link over in the comments, and anyone, they can go in the backstage, and the only way they go up to the stage where I'm at is if I let them. But I'm not likely to turn anyone down unless you have a repeated pattern of disrespect, violence toward others. Or the other big thing is if you're under the age of 18, forget it. Get out of here. Leave this channel, wherever you might be watching us from, if it's on Facebook or YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, or on our website. If you're watching from there and you're under 18, leave now. So anyway, some people, you can come on and talk if you'd like. I don't mind having other people up here with me. I can put you right beside me, make it happen. But this is a very real and present danger. Now, what was I talking about earlier where this one group, or not one group, but this group of groups, this one leader, massively well-funded organization that has $265 million left over in 2022 to fund attacks on minorities in the country. And I don't mean physical attacks. I mean attempts to erase their acknowledgement in the public square, to take away their ability to represent themselves publicly. That's what they're trying to do. That's the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. If you don't believe it, read it. And it is a very, very real threat to us because, one, Heritage has got the money. They're a Goliath to our David, okay? They took $22 million from about 70 organizations and created Project 2025 to train people to step into the government to remove us, erase us. Everyone else out here, not everyone, but a lot of people out here who are watching, have heard me or seen some of my letters, they're going, oh, that's just not professional enough, or that's just not the way it should be. We shouldn't be doing it like that. We don't want to go after them like that. It draws too much attention to them. Well, to hell with that. They've got a bullseye painted directly on us, just like Hamas has a generational bullseye painted on Israel. The similarities are stunning. It's because of an ideology has swamped someone so badly and so great that they are able to scapegoat another group of human beings and blame all their ills on them. That's what Heritage has done with Project 2025. They're not the only ones. American First Legal, Alliance Defending Freedom. There were 70 organizations, including an Alabama Policy Institute down here in my state of Alabama. I mean, it's all there right in the first 17 pages of Project 2025. Go read it. Don't take my word for it. Go read this thing. If it does not piss you off, well, here's the thing. A lot of people will read that thing and they'll just go, well, that's just another thing that's been written by somebody, and we don't have to worry about it and all that kind of stuff. Well, no, you are in for a very rude awakening. You are in for a very rude awakening. They want us gone. They blame us for all the problems that this country has faced. LGBT, gay people, lesbians, blacks, Asians. I mean, when was it? Back in the late 1800s, 1890s, 1880s. It was the yellow scourge. We had to put up some barriers to keep the yellow man out because he was taking all those jobs out there building the railroad going west. And they didn't, and they clung around in their groups and they all spoke Chinese together and we couldn't understand them. But yet, we had to demonize the Chinese people. So much so that many were hurt, killed, and chased out of the country. Because, we don't want to offend the First Amendment rights of our regular Americans, right? To hell with the First Amendment rights for the others. Right. No, we've done that. We've done it forever. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even in the 1880s, 90s when the Chinese were here helping build railroads. I mean, that wasn't the first time we started demonizing a group of people. You can actually go back to, let me see, the Civil War. Then you go back before the Civil War. Irish who were coming over here because of the famine that was taking place in Ireland. They were demonized. The Italians came in. They were helping with the mines and stuff like that and working in all these places around the country, getting, going coal mining and iron ore mining and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and stone workers and stone masons and stuff like that. They were demonized. As a matter of fact, so much so that the people who were from those countries did everything in their power to hide the fact that they were not native-born Americans or try to hide that they were Italian or German or Spanish or whatever, or Irish and Jewish. Yeah. But that's not even the end of it. That's not even the first of it in this country. This may be some harsh reality for what some people are thinking right now, but let me tell you something. Benjamin Franklin wrote a letter in 1754 in Albany, New York. This is me paraphrasing a little bit because it's been a long time since I've read the letter, but this is what it has to say, paraphrased. Who are we? Now, I'm just going to say it the way because let me kind of put this in context. Franklin knew about Mars. It was newly discovered, this planet out there, this big planet. They saw the canals on there. They thought they were canals on Mars and all that. So they assumed that they had to be some kind of people there or Martians living there. Well, even some of the most brilliant people in the world thought that, including Franklin. Franklin wrote his paper in 1754 and said, what would the people of Mars think if they saw this swarthy complex, this dark mass growing across the continent of America, referring to not just Africans. Franklin he grew up a little bit, maybe a little bit, at least he was less obvious about it. But then his views were that if you were African, Italian, Spanish, German, Russian, Chinese, anything like that, you weren't deserving to be here in the United States or on the American continent. He called you a swarthy bunch of people, unworthy of this continent, and he didn't want them here. So we come by this kind of hatred and demonizing of other groups of people naturally. But let me just say this: it's not just endemic to the U.S., the continental U.S., or people who came here as a colonist for the U.S. No, it's not. Every culture has got people who want to hate on another. Why do you think they left Europe to come over here to start out with? Well, let me tell you, it wasn't for religious freedom. It was because they wanted to be able to live their religion the way they wanted to. That's different than religious freedom. They didn't believe that people should have freedom to believe anything they wanted to believe. No, they were very specific about what they thought people should believe. And that's why they came here, to get away from those over there. They came here for that reason. I mean, this stuff has been going on forever. It's part of humanity. Every nation on earth has got those people who are extremists one way or the other, who don't like another group because they're a little bit different, or maybe they blame them for all the problems that they and their family have experienced throughout all the time. Really? Well, then we come right back to where Hamas is and why they're attacking Israel, because they've scapegoated Jewish people so much throughout generations that now the only recourse is violence. It's not oppression. It's not that they were recently oppressed or anything like that, or shoved into this strip of land called Gaza. It's not because of that at all. It's because they have a long-term generational hatred for Jewish people. Here in the U.S., guess what's being built up? A long-term hatred for LGBT people and any minority, particularly transgender minorities, particularly transgender veterans like myself. They're working overtime to make sure that they rile up their people so much that, they can push the other group down and make them disappear from the public square. That's what they're trying to do. And in that forward to Project 2025, it's there, plain to see. They tell you exactly. And if you don't take them at their word, then you will be erased. It's that simple. Yes, it makes me angry. It makes me, I get really, really pissed about it, because why? No one else seems to be catching on to this, that that's what they want to do. No one else is catching on to the fact that they want to, as they said in very deliberate words, erase, delete, and excise across the whole of government any reference to people like myself, transgender people, gender identity, gender fluidity, sexual orientation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and intersectionality, and all of that stuff. They want to remove it from the whole of government. So guess what happens when you do that? If on January the 25th or January the 20th of 2025, this person sticks their hand in the air and goes, "So help me God," and that's a conservative person, well, this document they've already agreed to. Most of the candidates on that side have already agreed to Project 2025. They know that Project 2025 will create for them, that will save them a ton of work, vetting and testing, improving, and getting people ready to assume leadership roles in the agencies of government. Why would they want to do that? Their stated objective is to go in there and then shrink the whole of government. That's the stated objective. But the first thing they're going to want to do is, one, if you're familiar with Schedule F, they want to make sure that all employees of federal government are there at will, hired at will. That means you can be fired at will. They want to roll out Schedule F. It was tried under President Trump, removed by President Biden. But if a conservative gets in, guess what's the first thing they're going to want to do? Well, the first one or two things they want to do. They're going to reinstitute Schedule F. They will ban transgender people from serving openly anywhere in the military. They will deny health care for veterans who happen to be trans. And then with all those people rolling across all of those agencies and departments and leadership positions across the executive branch of our government, guess what's going to happen next? They are going to go through every policy, rule, regulation that's in there, strike from them those words, erase, delete, and excise those words, sexual orientation, gender identity, the SOGI field. And they actually call it SOGI, which is the correct way to describe it. In the forward, written by Dr. Kevin Roberts, who happens to be an early American historian, which I think is kind of myopic. His view is really myopic. I don't care telling you. Really, narrowly myopic. He is driven by an ideology. He happens to think that I'm an ideology, but he's not. He personally is not an ideology. He is himself. He is a human being all by himself. He's also an American all by himself. Without any labels attached to him, that's who he is, an American. So am I. I happen to be transgender. But being transgender is not an ideology. Being a conservative for Dr. Roberts is an ideology. But transgender is not. How can I tell you that with such certainty? Well, just look inside our own group. Just tell me something about this group that calls themselves transgender people and diverse people of America. Take a look inside it. You're going to find people who are independents. You're going to find people who are fiercely liberal and far over there on the left side. You're going to find people who are far over there on the right side. These are all transgender people who happen to be Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians. I'm sure there's a few fascists and Marxists in the bunch too, just like there is in all those other groups outside of us. All those ideologies don't define who we are. Now, they can if we let them. You can if you let Robert's view of conservatism and republicanism take over. If you allow that to happen, you will accomplish exactly the same goal that Hamas is trying to accomplish with Israel. Is that dramatic? No, it's the truth. Don't like it? Well, I'm sorry. Get your head out of the sand. It's time to come on. We've got to do something now about it. No more can we sit around here and just pretend that it will go away. No more can we just go, oh, kumbaya, everything's all right. Let's go do this, whatever. Let's go make this happen. If you aren't standing up to this crap, then you will be erased. That's the second thing that they're going to do once they take over the whole of the executive branch of government. They're going to go in there and erase us. What does that do to people like me who happen to be veterans? Or what does that do to people like me who happen to be in the military active duty? Well, for one thing, it removes all of those groups and organizations within those departments and branches that have to do with diversity and equity and inclusion. It removes them, eliminates them. If there's a DNI office in the Department of Defense and DOD, or if it's over in Homeland Security, or if it's in the FBI or the Department of Justice or down in the CIA or wherever, if there's an organization that acknowledges that there are different types of people within your organizations, it will be gone. They have a plan to do this. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're telling us what they're going to do. If you don't believe it, well, all I can tell you is you got your head stuck way down in the sand, okay? Way down in the sand. Get your head out of the sand. We got to do something now. You got to stand with us and fight, or get out of the way, because we are coming through to stand up for all minorities. Don't like it? Well, go back in the closet and just stay there. That's all I can tell you. Get out of the way. Because we're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for your lives. All right. So what will that do in the VA? I get my care through the VA, through the Veterans Administration. I get my medical care through the VA. I'm also retired. I'm 60. How old am I now? 64. Forgot. Yeah, I'm 64 years old. 4 children, adult children, beautiful children, very, very, very smart and intelligent and well-rounded American children. And 8 grandkids scattered all over the country. If we were to fly the flags of every branch of military that my immediate household represents, you would have the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the National Guard units of Alabama and Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas. You would have those all represented in my immediate household. And I'm very proud of that. Very happy about that. I'm thrilled about that. But it all is for naught if we sit around here and twiddle our thumbs and fiddle our little fiddle while Rome burns. And that's what by the way, that's what I accuse Tommy Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, of doing. He's sitting back and fiddling while Rome burns, meaning he's put a hold on our senior military leader appointments, on the flag and general officers who need to be leading organizations around this world, leading our military men and women around this planet. He's put a hold on it. And if you have any contacts in the Senate, or any people here in Alabama, like myself, which I do all the time. I mean, they just heard from me today. I even reached out to Senator Britt's office, but they said, we're not Senator Tuberville's office. And I said, yeah, I know that, but you know, we got to do something to stop this person, to get him to lift that darn hold on the appointments right there. You even have General Hayden, former director of the CIA and national, security, the NSA, and all those groups, a very smart person, today said that Tuberville needs to be, just needs to stop. Lift the hold. Everybody's getting pissed right now about this. Some leaders, some of the retired military leaders here in Alabama can't come forward publicly and say anything because they would be ostracized immediately by the rest of the state who happens to be deep red. I mean, these people are conservatives too, but yet they're coming to me and saying, "What can we do to stop him? What can we do to get Tuberville to realize this has got to end?" And this is not something I've just heard today. This is something I've heard for the past 3 months, 3 or 4 months, 5 months. People I know who are senior retired flag officers and general officers who have made Alabama their home have come to me and said, "We've got to get him to stop." But they can't say it publicly. Well, I think maybe it's time to take a public stand like General Hayden did today. I think it's time to take a public stand with people like me who are out there fighting for all of us, struggling for all of us. It's time to take a stand now and get up off your asses and get moving. I don't know any other way to tell you. And with that, come back tomorrow. I'll be around noon tomorrow, noon Eastern and 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll continue this conversation. I'm likely to go right down that same thought path then as now, because it is just so prescient and so existential, such an existential threat to all of us. Okay, it is a threat to our existence, our lives. When you have an organization as powerful, as influential as the Heritage Foundation saying that a group of people are the root cause for all of the things that ail this country, we need to erase them and delete them and excise them because they're unreal people and they're unnatural. They're not qualified for the First Amendment. I mean, they don't have enough personhood even as corporations. You've got that organization doing that, and it's well funded. And guess what the end result will be if you allow it to continue? Just look in Israel. You get these ideological extremists like Hamas. And I'm not talking, that's not the whole culture. Not all of Islam believe that kind of stuff. These are the extremists for the most part. I've got friends who are Muslim, and I'll tell you right now, they don't support any of those things. So this is not about Muslim people. This is not about people who believe in Islam. It's not about any of the Abrahamic faiths, all of them that arose from Abraham. It's not about that. It's about the extremists who have taken control of a group of people and then tried to wipe out another one because they blame them for everything. And if you're an American who is an anti-Semite, Lord, I hope there's a way for God to forgive you because that's just asinine. What you're doing is feeding the same kind of animal that ISIS is. And what you're doing is that opens up the door for you to go after people like me just because I'm trans. Well, here I am. Have a good day. Get off your asses. Get busy. Stop this crap that's going on out here. And let's put an end to Project 2025 before it becomes a Hamas. Good night.